Miracle on 34th Street. There's a scene in that movie where the post office delivers mail for Santa Claus to the courtroom, proving that Kris Kringle is Santa Claus. Nearly a century ago or more, there was a newspaper article that was written to a little girl named Virginia. And the opening line on that article said, "That's right, yes, Virginia, there is a Santa Claus." Well, that sentiment has been the basis for more than one Hollywood movie over the years. And the most memorable one was The Miracle on 34th Street. However, as tender a sentiment as that be, the very concept seems to defy all logic. In a book by Wayne Rice entitled Still More Hot Illustrations for Youth, he wrote the following observations. "It is truly heartwarming to know that millions of people around the world believe in Santa. Sure, most are under 4 feet tall, but still it's amazing that so many believe in the big guy in the red suit. Consider the following. Around the globe today live approximately 2 billion children. Santa doesn't visit all of them, of course. Subtracting the number of Muslims and Hindus and Jewish or Buddhist children, that reduces Santa's Christmas Eve workload to 15% of the total, of 378 million. At an average census rate of 3.5 children per household, and presuming there is at least one good child in each home, Santa must visit about 108 million homes. Now, Santa has about 31 hours for Christmas to work with. That's between the different time zones and rotation of the earth, assuming he travels east to west. This works out to 967.7 visits per second. That means that at each household with a good child, Santa has around 1/1000th of a second to park the sleigh, hop out, jump down the chimney, fill the stockings, distribute the remaining presents under the tree, eat whatever snacks have been left for him, get back up the chimney, jump into the sleigh, and get on to his next house. Now, for the purposes of our calculations, we will assume that each of these 108 million stops is evenly distributed around the earth. And we're talking about a trip of about 3/4 of a mile between each household. A total trip of 75.5 million miles at the speed of 3,000 times the speed of sound. And conventional reindeer can run at best 15 miles per hour. The payload of the sleigh adds another interesting element. Assuming that each child gets nothing more than a medium-sized Lego set, 2 pounds. The sleigh must carry over 500,000 tons, not counting Santa himself. And on land, the conventional reindeer can pull no more than 300 pounds. In the air, even granting that the flying reindeer could pull 10 times the normal amount, the job can't be done with a mere 8 or 9 of them. Santa would need 360,000 of reindeers. Then there is the air resistance at such a speed of this. And Santa would be instantly pinned to the back of the sleigh by more than 4 million pounds of force, which would turn him into a quivering blob of pink goo. And you wonder why some people don't believe in Santa Claus. The movie, Miracle on 34th Street, acknowledged that there were difficulties in accepting the idea that there really was a Santa Claus. And how does the movie solve that question? Anybody remember? I told you.
Yeah.
The post office. They appealed to a higher authority, the U.S. Postal Service. And because of this and other evidence, the resulting change that took place in the lives of the main characters was the miracle in the movie. But the miracle was brought about because they found a reason to believe. A reason to believe that which had been difficult to accept. Now, God knew that mankind would also find it difficult to believe what he was going to do. I mean, the very idea that God would become flesh and dwell among us, and he would come down in the form of an infant in an obscure stable and in an out-of-way place of a town called Bethlehem. And there are many today who still find it hard to believe. And so God supplied proof. And in the opening book of Matthew, it begins with telling us the genealogy of Jesus. And then after going through all of the generations, it tells us this in Matthew 1, verse 17. It says there that thus there were 14 generations in all, from Abraham to David. 14 from David to the exile in Babylon, and 14 from the exile to the birth of Christ. Now, did anybody notice that there was something wrong with the title of my sermon? Anybody notice that? What is it? That's right. The title of my sermon was Miracle on 42nd Street. But the name of the movie was Miracle on 34th Street. I'm about 8 streets off. Why would I do that? Well, for the life of me, I couldn't find any other numbers in Scripture that added up to 34. But as I was looking for those numbers, I came across this passage. And I saw 14 and 14 and 14. And that added up to what?
42.
And in that 42, I found a miracle. There are 3 things about this miracle. First of all, God provides us with proof that man would need to believe that which is difficult to accept. I can imagine Matthew preparing his gospel, doing his research into all aspects of Jesus' ministry and all of his background. And I can see him poring over the Old Testament scriptures, looking at the names of all Jesus' ancestors. And as he begins to gather his information together, he starts to do some calculating. And then he sees something. What he sees gets him excited. I can just visualize him rushing into the living room and grabbing his wife by the shoulders and shouting, "Hannah, Hannah, look at this!" And then he points the information out on his paper. He found a pattern. It was as if all of the puzzle pieces had begun to fit together. Have you ever worked on a jigsaw puzzle? How many of you have done that? A lot of you? Yeah. Have you ever come to the point where nothing seems to be fitting together as it should, and then all of a sudden you begin to see this pattern and all the pieces in your puzzle begins to just fall into place? And when that happens, you experience this sense of euphoria and excitement as you see this pattern develop. And that excitement was only over a bunch of cardboard puzzle pieces.